Hi, everybody. I hope that this message finds you well wherever you are and at peace. I'll try the best of my ability to deliver this message according to how the Spirit leads me to. I'm sorry that I don't teach often on grace. Not that I don't like the message of grace, but I do believe that people have abused of the message of grace to the extent where nobody values holiness anymore, and people try to use grace as free tickets to continue to sin and with no consequences. In case sin has become an habit in your life, I need to compare you to the greatest of the Bible. And the greatest of the Bible are people of the caliber of Moses. And you'll be shocked to hear that in the story of Jude, the first book of Jude, there is a mention where the angel Michael, he's fighting with the body of Moses with the devil. So it means that the devil could find in Moses something to claim about in the presence of God. And that becomes very dangerous. And I know that reading the Bible for a long time will tell you that heaven is often presented like a court. And being a court, it means that unfortunately, even the devil has the right to approach God to come and lay a complaint. So now I've covered the story of Samuel, how he led the children of Israel to a point, and he says, Ebenezer, I put that monument, which actually meant that up to this point, the Lord has been with us. It means that they've conquered a certain amount of territory of grounds. And that Ebenezer, it's important because it marks the limit between light and darkness too. It marks a limit of how much territory they could get in terms of the status which they were. And remember that victory came about when Samuel himself was in a state of holiness and then turned the whole Israel back to God with a set of purification that could give them the ground to win the victory. So as we are fighting with the devil, the good news is he can't touch you. It's impossible for the enemy to come into your family or to your life unless you give him the rights to. And the rights to is sin. So basically, I know that you've been wondering because your life is going just like the Bible. There is a territory that you take and then you lose. You win some battle and then you lose others. And it happens to you that very early at a time you lose your husband. You lose him to cancer. You lose your children and you lose things. And in times like that, you come to question, where was God? The good news is God was there and God is still in heaven. And the bad news is like the enemy too has access to heaven and he might have brought something that is detrimental to you and is claiming the life of your child. And how do we change that? We change that by the way we live. One of the things that the spiritual person should know is that the enemy cannot do anything to you. In fact, every single sin that you actually committed, you've done that yourself. The only thing that the enemy can be in your life is a voice. He can only whisper something to you, influencing you in your thought and in your minds to act onto something, to be taking bribe, to be able to live in corruption, to be able to live in adultery, to be able to murder somebody else. Because the moment you do that, it's your doing. And that's the doing that it brings to the presence of God to say, this guy needs to be judged according to your book. The good news about the judge that we have, which is God, is the fact that he doesn't just pronounce judgment, only hearing from one side, he always sends a set of witness. You've seen that in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where God clearly stated to Moses, to Abraham, that I have come down because I've heard the heart cry of that town. I need to go verify what's going on. And if whatever is being said is true, I'm going to have to destroy the town. The question to ask is, what if God had to come into your life under the complaint of the enemy? Will he find what the enemy has claimed that you are doing? Will he find you cheating to your wife? Will he find you stealing money in your company? Will he find you being dishonest in the dealing of men? And that's the ground at which you need to be honest. I know when calamity problem comes, we tend to question the presence of God, but when we consume sin, we don't seem to look for him. I know that you heard it before. You heard it before that the eyes of the Lord sees everything. The most beautiful thing that sometimes I need to remind you is like, as far as the most private places of your life, God sees you. From time to time, we share to you dreams and you don't want to admit that it's true, but you recognize in the deepest of your soul that it is true. What has actually happened is that God has taken us His Spirit and brought us to your privacy to make us see who you really are. He brought us to your heart to really see what you're really thinking about. And because we are men, we can't prove it to you, but because it's God, He's shown you that I can break the defense of your home to be able to assess your standing with me. So thanks to Jesus Christ that he paid the price for us. So the coming of Jesus was exactly for that, was to save us from the power of sin. And Jesus will die on the cross and come down to hell, and he takes the key of grave and death, so that none of us that believes in him can be found in hell on the day of judgment. Now, the bad news about you is, like, as I'm standing behind the camera today, I'm part of those teachers of the Lord that is using to make sure that we can promote his law, make sure that you know he's dealing, you make sure that you know how he deals with affairs. Because on the other side of life, I will not stand as a teacher. We're going to be standing as witnesses, because God will have to call people that will confirm that you heard this message. God will have to call people to make sure that you knew about his son, Jesus Christ, that he could save you from where the devil wants you to go. At the end of the day, in life, we have to be smart. Smart is being like Solomon. Solomon, when he took up the kingdom, the one thing that he prayed for was wisdom. And God was happy because he wanted to look like God, meaning that he wanted to be in a position where he will know what is right and what is wrong. And that's why the only time that the wisdom of Solomon was materialized is the time where he pronounced a judgment between the two prostitutes. And then people say that God is with him because he was doing the God thing. So today I want to confirm to you that every single thing that happened in your life was fair because God allowed it. But I also want to tell you that God only allowed this because there is so many files on this table that the enemy has found in your sin that he could present in his presence. But if you live in holiness, the line that Ebenezer was drawn for the light to shine will keep expanding, and the enemy will have no claim upon your life. In the name of Jesus Christ, I reclaim the territory of your life by turning your hearts and your life and your minds in the things of heights. In the name of Jesus Christ, be free from captivity.